Taking video.
Green Local 175 is a non-profit organization aimed at increasing environmental awareness, as well as stimulating and promoting green economic development right here in the Utica-Rome region. For the next hour, stick around for news, newsmaker interviews, and contributing editorialists. And now your host and founder of Green Local 175, Mr. Richard Morris.
Well, we got another exciting hour for you. If that wasn't too much for your heart, we have more. So take another chill pill. And we're talking Utica's 3rd Ward Common Council seat. I have also a very keen interest in this because this is my ward. And quite frankly, gentlemen, I have no idea right now who I'm going to vote for. And so I hope this goes a long way to determining who I will cast my vote. As a matter of fact, you have Don Stebbins here. He's also in your ward. So it's kind of interesting because Mr. Morehouse and Mr. Zecca are also in the ward, so we're all South Utica people within a stone's throw of one another. But we have 2 candidates. The Republican candidate is Jason Flemma. Now, Flemma's a well-known name in this area, but he's one of the younger Flemmas because he's a young professional who says he's committed to the area. He graduated with a BA from Utica College and a JD from Hofstra University. His current occupation is that of a lawyer in private practice with an office in downtown Utica. He is married to Alana Herbowie Flemma, and they live with their 3-year-old daughter, 7-month-old son, and 2 cats on Bonnie Bray in the city of Utica. If you go to Green Local 175 Live, click on the media button, and then the radio and internet show button, you'll see a little bit about the candidates and also their contact information, whether it's their telephone number, email, website, whatever they chose to give is what we put up. Now his opponent, he's a well-known name because he's been around in politics for quite some time. He's Dan Trevisani, and he's the Democrat in this race for the 3rd Ward. He was born and raised in Utica, New York. He had a distinguished career with the Utica Fire Department and was the proud recipient of the Firefighter and Law Enforcement of the Year awards. Dan was the founder and president of the Utica Parks Foundation, Inc., which is a private, not-for-profit foundation which serves as a conduit for funding from private citizens and other grant sources. He was also founder of something called the Utica Fire Academy, where he worked collaboratively with city leaders and department officials to locate and secure property for the academy training site. Dan says that this almost impossible task became a reality and now attracts fire departments from all across New York State. He is currently a member of the Children's Museum Board. He lost a Democratic primary for mayor of Utica, but was elected as the Utica County legislator. As a matter of fact, the 19th district is all in our district, so Dan is all of ours representative for the Utica County legislature. He resides in that district, of course, with his wife Carrie and their 3 sons, Hayden, Daniel, and Vincent. And once again, his contact information is on there. Now, we flipped a coin before we went on the air, and Dan won it. And so the order will be Dan will give his introduction first, followed by Mr. Flemma. Now, after we're done with the debate, what will happen is Mr. Flemma will give his summary remarks first, and last will be Mr. Trevisani. So, Mr. Trevisani, welcome. Go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Well, like you said, I was born and raised here in Utica. To me, it's...
Can you bring that microphone just a little closer to you? Go ahead. Just bring it right in there. Go ahead.
How's that sound?
All right,
better?
That's perfect.
All right, you know, I was born and raised here in Utica. I come from a public safety family. You know, my father was a police officer and my mother was a homemaker, and there was 10 of us. So, you know, I grew up with a very large family. Again, born and raised right here in Utica, resided here. My wife is actually from Oneida area, you know what I mean, which is an actual absolutely beautiful city. So I like to compare the 2 cities, if you will, you know. But other than that, I'm just going to defer my time to Jason.
Okay. Jason, you got 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. My name is Jason Flemma. I am a lifelong resident of the area. I'm a young professional, and like you said, I am committed to the area. My reason for getting involved in local government is because I love this area and my belief in its potential. I feel that being a a young practicing attorney gives me a unique perspective. I'll bring professionalism and energy to the city council. I think all of those characteristics are necessary to move our city forward. And I thank everyone for listening, and I would be remiss if I didn't say hello to my daughter, Isadora, who's listening tonight. Hello, Isadora, I love you. Listen to your mommy. Thank you.
Okay. Always good advice. Now, let's start right off. We just had the controller's race last hour. What candidate for Utica controller are you both supporting? Mr. Trevisani?
Which candidate am I supporting?
For the Utica controller's office.
You know, I haven't made a decision yet.
Okay. You're a member of the Democrat Party in Utica? Okay. Mr. Flemma, now we don't have a Republican candidate for the controller. First of all, why do you think that was?
Well, there were some reasons that I really would be remiss if I got into it. I'm not exactly sure why we did not field a candidate. We did not, but that's the fact of the matter. And
doesn't make the party look very good, does it?
well,
This is the major office this
this
season.
this is the big election, and we didn't field a candidate. That is correct.
Of course, when you got the Democrat Party and Independence Party, I don't think it really matters how you look, given all the things that transpired that we talked about the first hour. Okay, well, we get that out of the way. Now, would you both agree with me, a yes or a no, that the city is in a fiscal mess?
Yes.
Yes, I think cash flow
Okay.
is a problem. Yeah.
How did we get into this fiscal mess? Either one of you.
I
Mr.
mean,
Flemma?
yeah, I mean, I don't think there's one specific reason. I think all cities across the state of New York are facing economic hardship. We had the Great Recession. We had a water fund balance that has been drained. We have had.
At one time, there was like $12–14 million in that.
That is correct, and there's been a series of issues, that you can't point to one particular issue. I mean, it's just a combination of many things.
Dan?
Yeah, well, costs are going up. This has been happening for many years. Cities, especially say like Utica, it's a very blighted city. It's funny. I used to say when I first got in the fire department 25 years ago, I used to say, there's pockets of bad areas. Now you see pockets of good areas in the city, and I'm serious about that. I mean, as I go door to door.
Well, let's face it, folks. One of the reasons we're all from the same area, South Utica, is that's one of the areas.
Well, yeah, it is. It's still one of the nicest areas left in the city. It is a beautiful area, and that's where we bought. But it's kind of a shame when you put a fortune into your home, and then one block down you have a building with a 2x4 plywood right across the door. I mean, that's unconscionable. I mean, it's not. It shouldn't happen. It's a beautiful area, and you walk around the block and you have boarded up buildings. I mean, in one of the best neighborhoods.
Who would have ever thought in that area that you would see that? We're going to get into that a little bit more because there's a lot of problems in our district, in our third ward of Utica. But let's go to a couple of other things. Would you agree with me that I would describe the Common Council meetings as rancorous? Would anybody take exception to that?
No.
How do we get the council on track? Now, nobody expects them to agree on everything, but they do expect people that they pay good money for to react in a civil manner. How would you, once you became on the council, what would you do to increase civility?
Well, I would treat people with respect first and foremost, and I think that there are some ways to tweak the rules that the council runs, that runs the council, the way that the rules that the council runs by. I would tweak those rules. I think that there's some ways that we can look at those rules. And
well, we'll follow your lead. Go ahead.
With the rules?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of bringing legislation to the floor, in terms of...
Because I also had that in my notes, by the way, so I wanted to discuss this.
Yeah, I think in terms of how legislation is brought to the floor, and in terms of how agendas are run, I think if we can tweak those rules, the county does it a bit differently.
Well, how would you do it? How would you change things?
Well,
because what you're talking about, there's been a lot of complaint about the committee system and how legislation is allowed to come up on the floor and be voted upon.
Correct.
Some call it a legislative gateway, where in other words it's blocked, legislation is blocked from coming up and being voted on. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, I would run it more the way I would like to see it run more like the way the county runs it, and maybe Dan could speak, to the rules that the county runs. But there's the committee system in the county. Nothing goes to the floor unless it gets through the committee, and I think that may be one of the reasons why there's some.
Well, this is how the rules were changed to the common council. That's how it is now.
Right.
Well, so how are you going to change the?
Well,
I thought you said you're going to change the rules.
But
Dan.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's simple. Again, I always use this politician once told me, we live in a democracy, but it's only a democracy unless you vote my way. And that's not, you follow me? What you need to do is listen to the opponent. For instance, I have issues. Let's just say I have an issue about the blue bags. Obviously, some people don't agree with me, but you know what? I'm going to respect that opinion, but they need to respect mine. Respect their opinion, follow the rules of order, and just move on. Don't get up and walk out, things like that. You know what I mean? There are certain things that you need to do. Like Jason said, you need civility there. You really need to. If somebody has an idea, build off of the idea. You may not agree with it, but still you may be able to build off of it. Like I have some ideas. I don't expect everybody to agree with my ideas. Just build off of them if you can. But yeah, everybody should treat everybody with respect and just follow the rules. It's that simple.
and also using Robert's Rules of Order, I think maybe would be a positive step in the right direction as well.
I think they hogtied Roberts and they threw him in the back at the council. I think they should let him out.
Well, yeah, exactly. They should let him out, and it should be utilized.
Okay.
Follow the rules. That's it. Just follow the rules.
I'm surprised by your statement. Were you serious about this, that you don't like the blue bag system, Dan?
I think it's one of the biggest disasters the city has ever implemented.
Okay, let's get into this because, of course, we like to talk a lot about the environment on this program. So we've had a lot of the solid waste people on. What do you think?
Let's get serious. Let's be honest. It's all about money. It was all about money. The city's going to make some money. Whoever, everybody's going to share the pot of gold at the end.
Well, it's the solid waste authority.
But you know what? At the end of the day, what you forget to look at is a quarter of the people in Utica are elderly. Okay, my mom's 89. All right. She cannot make it to the store to buy a blue bag, pay taxes for 70 years. That's just fundamentally wrong, that she does not have an avenue to throw her trash out because she can't make it to a store, okay? How about the transients? The city has a large population that are moving in temporarily, moving 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatnot.
A lot of refugees.
A lot of these people do not buy blue bags. How about the poor? The poor buy blue bags in the first part of the month. They don't buy them at the end of the month, okay? It just doesn't work in a city of ours. If you worked in a blue-collar community, you 1,200 people, and everybody went out on their night to buy grocery, and they bought 2 months worth of bags, fine. But we live in a community that people just don't have that kind of money, or some people just aren't going to buy them, period. And it's not fair for the people that buy the blue bags, because what happens is their trash gets piled up in the attic, in the basement, in the backyard. You want to know how I know that? Because I was a fire marshal. I used to inspect those homes. That's where the garbage is left.
Yeah, some of them are floor to ceiling, aren't they?
And at the end of the day, it affects all of our property value. So don't think because we live in South Utica that it doesn't affect our property value. What happens a mile up the road or a quarter mile or a block down the road with garbage affects our property value. Our home in South Utica is worth a quarter what it is 1/10 of a mile across the line in New Hartford, and that's wrong.
Well, I'm going to follow up with you, Dan Trevisani, in a minute. But Jason, is this a burning issue for you, blue bags?
No, it's not. I like the blue bag system. I've been around talking to individuals. They like the blue bag system in terms of being able to put out whatever they want to. Yes, they have to buy the bags. My grandmother lived in East Utica, and she wouldn't go out to buy bags. But, my mother or my uncle or myself would go and buy blue bags and give them to her. I mean, I don't think it's a big issue. And in addition to that, it's how we pay for our solid waste removal. I don't know what Mr. Trevisani.
Well, that's good segue, because that's the question I would ask to you, Dan. Then how do we pay for all this?
Well, then I want a choice. Then give me a choice. Give me a roll-out toter. Make it easier for the public to throw out their trash. Give me a roll-out toter or a blue bag if you have more garbage. In other words, do like they do with the recyclables. Buy the sticker quarterly or annually even. Put the sticker on your container that you buy, okay? For instance, on the outskirts, if you pull up the website, Frankfurt Frankfurt and Herkimer. It costs them about $40 a quarter, I think it is, and they have a choice with no user fee. We have a user fee and no choice. Again, I think it's doable. I think we need it. We need to do it because the neighborly thing, first of all, let's just say you have garbage coming down the street from the neighbor's house, okay? You pick it up and you put it in your trash bin with a cover. Skunks don't get at them. Dogs don't get at them.
Raccoons.
The cats don't get at them. It stays in a container. It's the neighborly thing to do is to pick up the trash and put it in your bin. Now, you have that blue bag. We all know what's going on with the blue bags. You tie them, the tie breaks, okay? You put them out there, right? What happens? The trash comes. What do you do? What do you do? People are not doing a neighborly thing and picking up the trash and putting them in their blue bags. Want to know why? They're too full. You can't get anything in. They break easy. It's just, to me, it's just a system. It was all about the money. In my opinion, it really dirtied the city, if you will. In our neighborhood, it may work, but let me tell you, drive around the city, completely disagree. We got to have a better way to throw out our trash.
I'm going to digress a little bit because the last hour we sort of started with raking through all the muck that's been generated in this controller's race. So let me start out with a couple of things about you candidates. You can always find something. Let me ask you to comment, Jason, about bankruptcy, because as we know, this became an issue, Dan, in your mayoral campaign about a personal bankruptcy that you had. Jason, what do you think about personal bankruptcy? Should that disqualify you from any office?
I don't think it does. No, I don't think it does. I mean,
Well,
everybody
should it?
Should it? I haven't given it much thought, really. I mean, my house, we're fiscally conservative and we work with what we have. Some people fall behind and have issues, whatever they are. But I really haven't thought too much about it, honestly.
Well, I know you haven't made it an issue in your campaign. Some would say to your credit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think our city needs professionalism. That's what I plan to bring to the table. I don't want to get involved with pettiness, and stuff that has happened in the past. We need to move forward. We've had enough of it. We see enough of it now, in the current controller's race. It turns people off. We need to turn people on and get them involved.
All right, now, Dan, let's ask you to briefly, because I really want to move on for this, especially after the first hour. I'm a little tired of it. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what was the circumstances of this personal bankruptcy, and why shouldn't it affect people's judgment of you? Because you, as a running for the Common Council, you'll be determining to some degree the financial fortunes of the Common Council.
It was just a bad business decision. I made a bad business decision, and unfortunately, I was getting sued. And under the advice of my attorney, we had to go bankrupt, and that's basically what it is. Does it affect my my love or my commitment to the city? Absolutely not. It has nothing to do with it. And if Jason went bankrupt 15 times, I have nothing to do with your love and your commitment to the city.
Well, I'm not sure how I feel on big, but 15 times would be a red flag to me. I don't know about that, but there's a limit.
I agree with you there.
There's a limit to my generosity, Dan.
I gotta agree with you.
Now, let's get to some issues, some problems that I have. Because as I say, I'm trying to make up my mind. I'm not joking about this. I'm trying to make up my mind who I vote for. Because for people that don't know, we have term limits for the Common Council. And Rock Geruzzi, who just had triplets with his wife, it's probably a good time that he's ended his Common Council career. I think he'll have a few more important responsibilities to take care of. But he's termed out. So now we have two new people running for the office. So I'm not sure who I want to vote for. So here's a couple of questions that give me a little pause about each of you. And let's see if you can address it. To Mr. Trevisani, one of the problems I had with you, you made the media recently about your absences from a large majority of committee meetings in the United County Legislature. Now I'm going to paraphrase this, so you correct me if I get something wrong. But essentially you says, well, I'm there for the important stuff, and it really shouldn't be held against me.
Well, yeah, I made it 100% that time. I made 100% of my actual board meetings. The committee meetings are meetings that were, let's say, for instance, the public safety or the human resources meetings. I get my dockets in the mail, and I go through my dockets. If there are some questions that I have, and I can't make the meeting, I would call ahead if I need those questions answered. And many times I didn't have any of the questions. A lot of it's just pass-through money. It's just money that was allocated by the state or the feds, and it was just pass-through money, basically. And there was really no reason for me to go. There was a quorum. If there wasn't a quorum, obviously they would tell me. So some of those meetings I did not make, and it didn't affect my decision.
Well, some of the things that worries me, though, is that, obviously, I think any voter would. You see this information, you say, well, that's not right. I want the guy to show up for everything. Well, you made the statements, though, that apparently you have a few jobs. You have a family yourself. How many children?
3.
Okay, 3 children. That's a big responsibility. Where are you going to find the time for common council?
I'll find the time.
But you didn't find the time to make a lot of these meetings, though, for the legislature.
No, I did not.
So what assurances do we have that you're going to find the time? Because there's a lot of meetings, by the way, in the common council committee meetings that you would have to attend, other than the regular formal common council meetings. There's a lot.
Right. Right.
So you're just saying that your assurances that you will.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Flema, any response to this?
Well, I mean, if there was one issue that I would bring up with Dan, it would be his attendance record at the county legislature. If you don't go to the meetings, how do you know what's going on? How do you make relationships?
That's my concern too. Yeah.
And make relationships and build consensus among your peers.
And this is, by the way, not to say that Dan's a lazy guy, because, you have personal responsibilities you got to take care of.
Sure.
He's trying to make a living and all that.
Absolutely.
But as a voter, I don't think I have to be concerned about that. I just have to, expect that my legislature is going to give it 100%. Now, Mr. Flema, here's something that concerns me about you.
Okay.
You touted the fact that you're a lawyer. Well, people don't have a really high opinion of a lawyer because they think of lawyers as really part of the problem, not as the solution. So I have another thing, but can you address that?
Sure. I mean, there's bad apples in every bunch, but the overwhelming majority of the attorneys and my colleagues in this area are great individuals and caring individuals, and they really help out in their community. As an attorney, I advocate for a living. I advocate for individuals every day. Small issues, big issues, and all in between.
Is the law firm you're associated with your own firm, or are you associated with another law firm?
I'm associated with the law offices of Mark Jonas and Jason Flum.
Okay. And that's in the city?
Yes, we have an office in the old State Street Mill, the Broad Press building, on Court Street in the Arterial.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a few offices in that building now.
Yes, it is. There's actually quite a few people that work.
Okay, let me bring my next concern. I point out Anthony Brindisi in the last hour, because you knew Anthony Brindisi, quite capable attorney, young guy, young family like yourself.
Sure.
Lives in... Does he live in the same area that we do?
No.
Okay, he lives in a different area. But anyway, much like yourself, a young attorney with a young family. Well, he ran for the school board, and, he did a good job because he was very interested in it and all that. But you knew darn well that the guy had aspirations for higher office. Now, the school board was a 5-year term.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, the Common Council is only 2 years. But I have a problem in that you, as a very ambitious young person, you have a name, former Judge Flema, you're probably related to him?
Correct, yes.
What's the relation?
He's a cousin.
Okay. What assurances can you give the voter that you're really interested in the city and not using this as a stepping stone?
Sure. It's funny you ask this, because you hear, I watch political commentary on the TV, and you hear, they always ask, are you going to run for this? Are you going to run for that? And the gentleman sitting behind the microphone always says, I'm committed to what I'm running for.
Until they run for something else.
Right. But I always thought it was a line. But I can honestly tell you, right now, I am just focused on this council race. This is my first time as a candidate, and it is something like I've never done before, and I am committed to the area. I'm committed to the council.
Well,
and as I sit here right now, I have no aspirations.
Yeah, but can you tell me that seriously, a guy in your position doesn't have some thoughts, at least a fleeting thought of higher aspirations? in politics?
I can honestly say right now, I do not. It's a tough business. You know, it takes up a lot of time. I have a law practice. The council position is obviously it's a part-time position. And to put my stake in a full-time political position where I have to run every so often to keep my family,
So would you say to voters that I make a commitment for 1 or 2 full terms in the council?
Absolutely, yeah. I would commit to that.
Now, gentlemen, what role do you see is that of the Common Council president? And the reason I ask this is because some have suggested that it can be eliminated and most of the functions taken over by the clerk's office. Agree or disagree?
You want to go?
You know what?
Dan Provenzani?
Again, I don't have a decision. I can't make a decision on that yet. I would have to look into that. I mean, if Jason.
I don't know if it can be consolidated into that position or not. I have not thought about that. But I think the role of
because we're always looking for consolidation nowadays and ways to cut.
I agree with you, and I think the Project Argo that the county has right now with monies to look into that and implement consolidation, I think is something the city has to look at. But in terms of the council president, going back to your original question, their job is to run the meetings. That's what I see them, and to stick to an agenda.
Well, here's my point, though. Anybody, objective person, seeing the way those meetings are run, think that probably maybe a clerk who is a non-elected political person may be able to run it a little bit different. What do you think?
It's possible.
Okay. Well, you're at least open to it.
Absolutely.
All right, now, let's get to the big question. Everybody wants to know. Are you going to take the pledge never above the 2%? Jason Flemma?
It's not even 2% this
yeah,
next year.
1.6 or 1.7.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough number. As I sit here today, I would say that I would never go above that. I don't think we should go above it. But at the same time, it's implemented by the state. I mean, that's handed down by the people up on the state.
Well, whatever that number is, would you commit to never voting above that number?
I will commit, but at the same time, it's a tough number, and
well, it seems like you're wavering. That doesn't seem very ironclad. It's not exactly in stone, maybe more in plastic.
I hate to, paint myself in a corner, so to speak, but I will do everything in my power to stay within the cap.
How would you answer the question, Dan?
I would stay within the cap. I think people have reached into our pockets way too much. And the perfect example is, let's say, do you ever look at your cell phone bill lately? The 911 tax, okay, it's another $1.50, is it? There's probably like 10 or 12 different taxes on your cell phone bill now? I mean, everybody is grabbing a tax out of it, and it's got to end. I mean, it's one of the taxes I voted no on. But anyway, I just think there's too many people looking for fees and looking for ways to generate revenue. And
let's face it, fees are taxes, right?
Listen, it's
Absolutely.
all a tax. A tax is a tax is a tax. And at some point, we got to stop. And I guess the way I say it is, hey, listen, like he says, everything in your power, there's no way I can vote over a 2%. I mean, we just can't afford it anymore. I know the people in Utica can't afford it everywhere. They're struggling with, 2x4s are $4 a piece now.
I know, it's ridiculous.
They're struggling with
and
food.
plus, you got to go through the bin to get a good 2x4.
Yeah, I mean, milk, and then their gas. And,
right.
It's crazy. We can go on and on and on. It's just we don't. The people, the average working class person, just doesn't have any more money. They're dipping into their savings. They're dipping into their retirement. It has to end.
How about for a quickie here, talking about fees? This just came up recently that we had to pay this. Do you both support the library fee?
It could, because it's on our tax rolls.
Right.
Right, and that was voted in by the people on a referendum, I believe, and it's there to stay. I mean, it's there.
Okay. Dan,
listen, I have no problem with the library fee, but here's another issue. Then every time you turn around, there's another community open up a new library. I mean, we need to talk about that a little bit. We have a fee for this library,
and they're quite nice.
Well, yeah, and they are. I mean, and don't get me wrong, this library is used by a lot of kids. I mean, a lot of kids that go in there and use this library. But again, I mean, let's not have a fee for this one, and then 10 years down the road, you have another 10 libraries that open up, and now you have to fee those also? So that's where we have to be careful.
Now let's get to, we did a 3-hour program on Harbor Point where we discussed all about the history, We had city representatives on, National Grid representatives on. We had our Curie come in and Gilroy because they're on the LDC. What role do you see Harbor Point playing in the future economics of the city of Utica? And what ideas do you have as to what should go in that area? Jason?
Well, I think it's magnificent. I think along with the nanotech, I think the Harbor Point could be a very big boom to our area. I think that the state is turning it over to the city in the near future, I believe, and then they're going to open it up to proposals from developers. And it's a very exciting time. I think some type of mixed use should go in there. I think it would.
What do you mean by mixed use?
Well, I think lofts and businesses and storefronts. I think would be a great place. Restaurants. You got the water there. Everyone loves to be around water, and it's been barren for so long. I think it would really bring some pride to our city as well.
Dan, let me get your general comments, and then I want to follow up with more specifics on this. Go ahead, Dan. Dan, if you could take that out of your mouth, that would be great. Thank you. I know it's a little pacifier, but
Great, thank you.
Go ahead.
Hotel, motel.
You're going to sound like you have marbles over here for people listening on the radio.
You know what? It's my throat. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I apologize. Hotel, motel, restaurant row. I like to think of North Utica. I mean, we're right directly off of the thruway. I mean, that place should have been booming 20 years ago. But you know what? Now's the start. Now we can boom. I would even like to go as further as the auditorium. I know we can attract a hotel, attach it to the auditorium, attach a strip mall to the hotel. I mean, let's think bigger. Let's go to these other cities and see how they do it. That's what they do. Do it. I mean, you can have a hotel next to the auditorium. Let them use that as their main conference center. They can build a smaller conference center. We on the other side of the hotel we can have a strip center. I mean, we can do many things with. I think Harbor Point is the start of growth for North Utica. But again, my opinion: hotel, motel, restaurants. People can stay here, spend their money here, that type of thing.
Well, some people think that all this acreage, and by the way, well, let me ask you this question before I get to the baseball stadium question. Are we putting too many eggs in one basket? In other words, people have a lot of hopes because for decades we've been talking Harbor Point. Harbor Point. When do they clean it up? We got all this stuff here. Utica has a unique harbor. We have the only one in the Erie Canal barge canal system. But the problem is a lot of this is in a floodplain. So you really don't have the acreage that you need for the kind of development that Dan's talking about. You do have the ecotourism kind of recreation things that I've often said you should link it up with the Utica Marsh, and another gem that's underutilized in this area. But do you think we're putting too many eggs in the Harbor Point basket, Jason?
I don't think so. I think the city, there are other things happening in the city, and I think if you can try to tie Harbor Point into downtown, into Bag Square, you see Bag Square.
Bag Square, right.
And even the Uptown District in our district, it kind of has a kind of a small college town feel to it with the businesses that are there now. The Hops and Goblet just opened up. So there are, and I think there's a pizzeria going into the old Utica or South Utica Liquors. So there is development. Harbor Point is a big possibility, but you also have to still focus on small businesses, attracting small businesses, and growing.
We're going to get there because we're going to talk about downtown Utica in just a few minutes. But Dan, what about that? Are we putting too much hopes on Harbor Point?
Well, Harbor Point is you're saying too much hopes. Again, it's directly off the thruway, so I would hope they would put a lot of incentive into it. Do I think they're putting too much into it? Not really. Like Jason said, they're developing other areas. I mean, I think you've got the Bag Square East and West, and you know what I mean. So there are other groups that want to see their area grow, and they get involved in their area. So yeah, you may say the city may be pushing too much over there. I know they're trying to. They just got somebody to build off the arterial. You know what I mean? They're looking in other areas, so I don't think they're putting too much.
Well, one of the proposals for these large tracts of land at Harbor Point would be there's a proposal to move the baseball field from Murnane Field, which is across from the hospital, and it's more in the middle of the city, to the Harbor Point area. And one of the people are really thinking about this now because now we have an AHL hockey team. And as you know, we lost our baseball team when Bob Fowler moved it somewhere else, I think to the Orioles. Cal Ripton, I think, bought it. Would you say that the Harbor Point area is the place for a new stadium, a baseball stadium? And if so, what do we do with the parcel of land for Donovan? Do you have anything in mind for that, Dan?
No, I would definitely not put a I would not waste that property for a baseball stadium over there. Absolutely not. Again, I would stick hotel, motel. I would attract people there all for every season, all year long. I would not waste that parcel of land for a baseball field. You can always do that somewhere else.
Jason?
I've never envisioned a baseball field over there. I've never thought about that idea, but
I guess there was one there before our time. I guess that's why.
North
it's not
Utica.
Right? Yeah, there was a
It
baseball
was
field
the old
before our time.
Phillies, Richie
Okay.
Ashburn.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't even know where, but it's,
My grandfather took me to the Blue Sox down where it is today. So I
I feel so old.
yeah.
The Blue Sox. Well, I'm talking about the 40s, and this kid is talking about the Blue Sox of what, the 70s, maybe 80s. Okay. Well, anyway, let's get to. We had Kate Cardamone on from the CNY Conservancy, talking about this, what I labeled magnificent park system in the city of Utica, one of the gems that we have. What park system improvements would you have, and how would any ideas to pay for the increasing maintenance?
Well, there's always a cash flow crunch with every service that the city provides, and that just is revenue versus expenditures, and that's trying to attract small businesses, large businesses, getting more tax revenue from sales tax, and also trying to get properties back on the tax rolls. That's all part of trying to beautify our parks with the money that we have. If we could beautify our parks, I'm all for it. I think our park system is great. I love the fact that we have the green area that we have. I have friends that have moved away and they live in New York City, and they actually comment on the space that we have in our city limits. So it is a gem. It always has to be in the forefront of our minds because parks attract people, I think. And if they're looking good and they're nice, there's issues with trash at the parks. There's issues with vandalism at the parks, and that's always going to be, But if we have the money, we gotta.
Dan, now I know you're a big proponent of the park system. Why don't you tell people a little bit about what you've done in the past?
We founded the Parks Foundation. It's again on a Saturday morning. I actually dug into the pond that Mariah
Put that just a little closer to you. There you go.
I actually
That's great.
uncovered the pond that Mariah Proctor
Oh, the
commissioned
lily
back-
pond.
Yeah, the lily pond. And let me tell you something. The project turned out absolutely spectacular. But the same as back then. The same goes today as back then. Without a park patrol.
Right.
We are very, very, very limited. And
Look at
again,
the picnic tables in the South Woods.
Absolutely. I remember when I first started that project, there must have been a dozen people that would walk that park. By the end of that project, you were talking hundreds. And you want to know how we did it? We had a park patrol come in there, a gentleman that worked there, very low wage, put him in a brown car that said Park Patrol with a radio. And that's really all it was. You know what I mean? And he drove through the park at 6 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning. And he drove through with the yellow light, and people felt safe. They felt, again, a perception. They felt safe. They saw the park patrol. I remember them too. He had a jacket. We put park patrol on his jacket. He had a brown uniform, like a park ranger, And it was nice. But again, it was all perception. He couldn't do anything. He was just basically a park employee, and it really worked. But again, without park patrol, we're really going to have an uphill battle.
We're throwing good money after bad, aren't we?
Believe me, absolutely. And
Kate was telling me that they can't even put in concrete walls and all because they start chipping it.
Yes. They drive the cars right into the park. But again, what happened was when we had the park patrol, they would drive in and they'd see some kids back there with some beer, he would notify the police with
Right.
the radio, and guess what? Police came. Guess what? They were gone. They didn't come back anymore, and more people started walking.
Well,
it really worked.
with our fiscal condition of the city faces, for example, the Central New York Conservancy now has to take up the task with volunteers, the plantings every spring down the memorials as well. So this is becoming a real problem in that our gem is really becoming in danger, because if you can't maintain it, that's a real problem, isn't it, Jason?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone wants to see beauty. They don't want to see it run down. They don't.
Yeah, we're talking about quality of life, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
let's talk about an issue that I'm pretty close to, because one of my properties is on Sunnyside. Now, luckily, it's a little bit a block or so away from the flooding, because we have a number of infrastructure problems in the city of Utica, one of which is Sequoia Creek flooding. Now, what do you think about how the council and the city has addressed flooding? Because year after year, and it's getting worse and worse. We have flooding in frequency now that we never had before on a Brookline Drive and a Roosevelt. We seem to have done something on Helix Ravine. This is your ward. What assurances can you give to people that live in this area that the city is going to take care of this so they don't constantly get flooded out? Anybody? Jason?
Well, the work that has been done at Helix Ravine, I think has helped. I have walked around, I've talked to people, and they've said that it hasn't been the flooding that they've had before the work at Helix Ravine was completed. And I walked back there, and it is amazing what they did. I mean, they really put in some barriers and some tributaries to funnel debris and water so it doesn't overflow. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's an excellent way to help control the flooding. But there's always more that we can do. And I've knocked down a lot of doors, and a lot of people are upset at the catch basins. One guy said to me, you got to go look, and it was on Sunnyside actually. You have to go look at my catch basin. There's hockey sticks in there. And I went there, and there's actual hockey sticks in there, stuck down in there. And that is dirty work. Getting someone in there, removing the storm drain, getting in there and digging it out, basically. I mean, that's what it is.
Dan, your comments?
We pay a sewer fee, and then years ago, again, they came up with the brilliant idea to take all of your brush and put it in barrels. And what happened, you put it in barrels, so they figured, okay, they're in barrels, nothing's going to go into the catch basin, so guess what? Now we don't clean out our catch basins anymore. And again, it's management. That's the problem again. What we need to do is go back to an annual clean out of the catch basins. We pay a sewer fee. What do we get for it? We need to get the sewer department back in these catch basins, take off the covers, send the wand down there, and clean them out. Every single one of them. Just because we put leaves in barrels now, don't mean that people don't know what people do now. They mow their lawn. Besides, now because they don't want to put it in barrels or it's too heavy and they can't get rid of their brush, their green waste, they mow it all into the street. So now you get 100% of their grass going into the street and into the catch basin. So it made it worse, in my opinion.
Well, you mentioned sewers. The estimate to fix our sewer system, because the big problem is that the pollution goes to the Mohawk and pollutes the Mohawk, is basically the gist of it, the way it gets synthesized down. That's really the crux of the problem. It's been estimated over $100 million to fix the Utica system because we have a combined sewer system. Where are we going to get this money?
Well, that's the $100 million question, right? We have to look at all avenues, federal, state, grants. I mean, and it is an issue. When I forgot what administration it was, but they were giving away rain barrels because they wanted to, in South.
That was fairly recently, yeah.
And we have one, and because my downspouts went right into the sewer system,
right,
and that is like that throughout South Utica, and that's just how it was. And all those.
I've disconnected mine, yeah.
Yeah, and so with the rain barrel, we did that.
Mm-hmm.
But little things like that, planting trees, stuff like that. But in terms of the lion's share of the money, it's it's anybody's guess.
Dan?
Well, again, a good grant writer can find a grant for just about anything. And again, I mean, you talk about
You're going to find a $100 million grant?
Hey, listen, there's infrastructure money out there. I'm sorry, there is. And if we could, again, maybe it's politics. Maybe we all need to stick together. Democrat, Republican, Independents, Conservatives. Maybe everybody needs to get together and hit the state level and hit the federal government and say, guys, listen, you got infrastructure money. Where's ours? You know, they did urban renewal money. When the late 50s, urban renewal that was supposed to be for infrastructure money. Guess what? Utica just didn't do its infrastructure back in the late 50s and 60s. That's not our fault. We're paying for it now. You know, they did urban renewal. They knocked half the city down, and nothing went in its place.
Yeah, that was a terrible thing.
Terrible. No curbs, no roads, no sewage. You know, from what I understand, the city of Rome, they did most of theirs back with the urban renewal money. Again, I mean, I'm just talking about this secondhand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know about this factually, but if you drive in the city of Rome, let me tell you, their roads and curbs are beautiful. I'm like, maybe this guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, that's another problem. We talk about infrastructure. The engineer, the last one before he went to other places, said that we can only afford to do 3, maybe 4 miles of roads. At that rate, it'll be, Jason, you're a young guy, but that'll be your children's children before they actually see your street being paved. What do we do about this? Because I think both gentlemen would agree the streets are horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, roads is an omnipresent issue, and it always is going to be because there's so much of it. And you know, now the system is that they don't even pave a full road. They just pave part of a road, and they try to spread what little money they have around, so people do feel like they're getting something. And you know, I don't have a specific answer to pave the roads, you know, because it costs money. But I think that Utica is one of the last bastions of property taxpayers in the city, and I think it should get its fair share. You know, it's a problem.
Dan?
I'm gonna be honest with you. That's what the people want. Give the people what they want. I'd buy your own paving machine. They're out there. Buy your own paving machine. Pave your own streets. Even set up a new division off the Department of Public Works.
Where do you get the money, though?
Yeah, I'll find the money. But where do you get the money? Well, you know what?
I mean, we don't want to get into like asphalt buying and
And here's the other problem. You brought up DPW. We've had Commissioner Short in many times, and I commiserated with the guy because a couple of years ago we had that huge snowstorm in March. City was shut down because it was a heavy snow. They have antiquated equipment, and they broke down, and they couldn't clear the streets for many, many days. Now, luckily, it was March, because if it was January, maybe they'd still have the snow. I don't know. But how do you address the DPW's inadequate equipment and decreasing manpower? Dan?
Inadequate equipment. I would have to see that. They have mechanics. They have heavy equipment mechanics. I mean, we have.
But where are you getting the money?
They have money allocated for that. I mean, again, I don't, unless I really looked into the issue, they have mechanics, they have the equipment, they have the parts, you know, so where are you getting the money? Where's the fire department get them? They fix their
So
rigs,
are you saying it's mismanagement by Dave Short?
Listen, I'm not saying it's mismanagement by Dave Short, but let me tell you, something's mismanaged here because, I mean, come on, we have an entire DPW department. You can't tell me that we just don't have money for plows. I mean,
Jason, do you feel the same way?
Well, I actually, before I came here, I met a DPW guy. I knocked on his door and I talked to him, and he said that, you know, they basically have Band-Aids on their machines, and it is a problem. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Richard. That where you get the money, and the money comes from sales tax, it comes from property tax, it comes from small businesses, it comes from trying to think outside the box, bring some innovative ideas to try to raise more revenue.
By the way, gentlemen, I'm going to hold you over for about 10 minutes to wrap up some of these things, so bear with me because we're approaching the allotted time here. Well, you mentioned where do we get the money. One proposal has been a curb fee because people say, well, too much of our tax base is not taxed. Too much of our property is not in the tax base and therefore not taxable. They point to not-for-profits. How do you feel about curb fees or something like that? Anybody?
Well, I know Rochester did it,
Right.
and I don't know what the results are. I haven't seen.
Would you favor something like that?
I would. I mean, if there was a way to, I think legally you cannot assess a curb fee on just those properties that are not for profit. I think it has to be citywide. And that's another tax for everybody else who's already paying taxes, which is problematic, obviously. But if there was a way to leverage it somehow, so you can say that the people who are tax exempt have to pay a curb fee, and somehow reduce the people who are paying taxes by that same amount, I think could be a win for the city. And I don't exactly know how much money is out there. I don't know how much could be collected, but I think that that's an issue that should be
Yeah.
discussed.
Dan Gravesani?
If there was a way to collect a user fee, absolutely, on all of the non-taxable properties. Again, from what I understand, almost half of these properties are not paying taxes, from what I understand, and we got an issue with that. We definitely should.
We talked about this last hour with the controller candidate, and one of the things was that Bill Morehouse agreed to pay for televising the Common Council meetings, the pre-meetings. As you know, they meet in the back room before the general meeting. And he agreed to pay for that. It was about $50 a meeting, at no expense to the taxpayers. And the majority of the Common Council didn't want to do that. Now, as Common Council, a member of the Common Council, would you vote yay in terms of transparency to say that those meetings in the back should be televised?
Well, I think a transparency is good for everything. Sometimes they do go off the record for specific reasons. They may have a good reason to not have it.
Well, what good reason can you see?
Well, to try to bring a consensus, to see where people are before going before everybody and getting into a brawl.
Well, that's not transparency, though.
Well,
because there's a lot of important things that go on in that back room that people should see. Because it's open to the public.
Absolutely, anybody can come
So
in
why
and sit there
shouldn't it
and
be
watch
televised?
Well, again, if people are trying to build consensus and trying to find a consensus and a middle ground, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But overall, I think transparency is a good thing.
Dan?
I have no problem what they tape. They can tape anything and everything, and then they can actually see if I'm at my meetings.
Do you both favor term limits for Common Council people?
Yes.
So you
Yes.
wouldn't change the current system at all?
No.
All right, now, I'm wondering, both of you, how would you rate or give a grade from A through F the performance of the Common Council during the last 2 years?
I think every council has its challenges, and I think every one of the council members believes that they're doing what's right for the city.
I want a grade, Jason. How would you grade them the last 2 years? I hope you've been either at the meetings or watching them.
What's the criteria?
In terms of performance, however you want to designate
I
it.
think professionalism, they get a failing grade.
Right.
But in terms of their performance, it's probably middle of the ground.
So they get a C.
They get
Dan?
I
a
was
C
just about to
minus.
say that. I mean, for performance, they're stuck with some major issues. I know they had to make some drastic cuts. I know they even had to hit public safety a little bit. It's all these sacred areas that nobody ever touched before. They're actually touching them, so I do have to give them credit for that. When it comes to the, getting up and walking out, F. When it comes to the, screaming at each other and making gestures at each other, F. But
You're right.
But other than that, they do have some tough decisions to be made. It's not, they don't have easy.
And they're not going to be easier next year or the year after
they're not going to be
that.
any easier. And let me tell you, I always said in this business, your best friends.
Jason, you're saying especially what?
Especially with a 1.66% cap.
Now, in these last 2 years, who would you say is the most productive Common Council member?
I'm not gonna say who's.
Dan?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know. I know as a team. I know when they work as a team.
Well, it's usually 7-2.
Well, that's their team. You know what I mean? But is it fair? Is it fair that they block the other two? Absolutely not. But again, something you have to work with.
Let's talk about downtown quickly. Are you in, yes or no, were you in favor of the Mayor's Boulevard concept?
Quite honestly, they never had the money for it, so it was never actually something that could see fruition. And I don't. Again, I want to move forward.
Dan?
You know, I was always in favor of beautifying downtown. Maybe a smaller median, maybe like a 3 foot median with some decorative lights or something. Try to make it look a little more homey. If you,
Well, that's sort of what
if
the
you
mayor
will. But,
proposed.
well, I think from what I understand, again, unfortunately I didn't see the final plan that day when he drew it up. But I guess they want to turn it to one lane on each side with parallel parking. I don't know. I would really have
Well,
to
I can tell you
digest
from
that.
meetings, the Cornell people did a number of questions to people, and overwhelmingly the people are against any kind of median in Genesee Street whatsoever. But let's talk about one issue that seems to rear its ugly head all the time. And I want to know, first of all, is it real or perceived, the issue of parking in
Where?
downtown?
Well, quite honestly, as a lawyer, I go to the clerk's office quite often, which is in the county building, and I also go to the courthouse, which is on Elizabeth Street.
Yeah, right.
I have an advantage because I do have a parking spot, but sometimes I don't use it, and I park in the street, and I don't seem to have a problem with parking.
Dan, do you see a parking problem?
Listen, I think it's perceived. You go to go to the local mall. Where does everybody try to fight for the spot? The 4 spots right in front of the main entrance,
usually the handicapped
and they
ones.
drive back,
Right.
and they drive back, and they drive around again, hoping somebody's going to pull out. Are you kidding me right now? Just find a parking spot, walk around the block. Again, my opinion is, yeah. I mean, can the state address their issue with taking down the parking garage? Can they address their issue? Yeah, they should. I mean, maybe they should.
Well,
build a
see, I've
parking garage
often
for that.
talked with Mark Bozak, who's the head of the Landmark Society, and we've agreed for a long time that if any parking garage, the location for it should be where the former state office building garage was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the whole thing would be that, like people, Jason, like you, or that people worked in the state office building or the Oneida County, you have all the workers right there, they would park in that garage, and then you'd have plenty of parking for everybody else. Now, also part of that mayor's plan was he wanted to have paid parking. Would you be in favor of paid parking?
No.
Downtown?
No.
Dan?
Absolutely not. I think that's a bad precedent to start in Utica.
Now, in terms of environmental, I had this question down. Hopefully you won't scoff at me, but SUNY IT is going to install some electric charging stations for electric vehicles. They're up and coming, and they're going to provide free power. Also, the city of Rome has 3 spots. I don't think they're used at all. But would you say that, would you be in favor of trying to get some grant for a few stations at City Hall?
If there's a need for it, yes, why not? I think it's an up and coming issue, and it's something that should be discussed.
Dan?
Absolutely. I think everybody has a gas card for their vehicles in the city, and quite a few people have city vehicles. Absolutely. They had 3 electric cars, and when I worked for the downtown development area for City Hall, they had 3 electric cars. They just abandoned them. I took those cars back. I took those cars back. We recharged the batteries. We got them up and running. We used those cars for everything. So can they be used? Absolutely. We not only use them in parades, but we use them to lug ladders and all of the Christmas equipment they come out. I mean, we painted all the street poles with them. So absolutely. And it cost us nothing. We plugged them in.
Now let's get to an issue in our final minutes here. Let's talk about being business friendly. Years ago, there used to be a lot of small businesses, the mom and pop type of businesses downtown. When Utica was vibrant, in that you had these small mom and pop the shoe stores, the convenience stores. Nowadays, we're talking about loft apartments, but you can't even go to a drugstore downtown. There isn't anything downtown. There's no support facilities. We talk about these hockey players coming in with $100,000 plus salary. They could maybe live in a loft apartment, but would they really want to without any support services? Talk about, in general, what we would do for small businesses in downtown Utica to make a more vibrant downtown. And basically, what are some of your ideas for downtown to make it more vibrant? Who wants to go first? Jason?
I have a picture of Flemma Shoes store.
Yeah.
It was actually in the Uptown district in South Utica. But in terms of an idea I have, all of our economic development money, I believe, comes from outside the city, federal or state. And I think the city, again, to try to encourage positive discussions, should offer an entrepreneurial contest and offer $5,000-$6,000 to the winner of this contest. What is your idea to start a business in Utica? And for a young person, I think that would be a lot of seed money to try to start a bit. I mean, obviously we would have strings attached to it, but I think it would be a good idea, a positive idea to get people talking about starting an entrepreneurial business in the city of Utica.
Dan, any ideas on this
Listen,
subject?
I've always said that the number one problem, I think, with all of Utica is perception. We've got to change the perception. I really believe that. We need to change the perception about Utica, about coming downtown to Utica. I mean, my brother has a business on, let's just say, on Albany Street. And I've watched time after time people come down and the young girl will get out of a car and get on herself, oh, Mom, I made it and I didn't get shot. I mean, are you serious? I mean, and again, Utica has a perception problem. And until we address the perception problem, we're going to have a tough time getting small mom and pop businesses to relocate and open in downtown. And then again, if they can you attract them? I think if you have a strong, vibrant economic development department, I think they can attract businesses. Maybe help them out with a little facade money. Repair their sidewalks for them. Don't let them pay for their sidewalks. Things like that. You know what I mean?
Now, the last question. I want to just briefly touch on the largest part of the budget expenditures is public safety. And a large part of that is for pensions and health care for public employees in general, beyond even public safety. Had the mayor on, and Peter Fiorello, who I think everybody agrees is doing a good job, stated that right now, in this day and age, employees only pay in a range from 0% to 15% of their health benefits. Now, obviously, you both know that that doesn't take place in the private sector. What would be your advice as to percentage that the mayor should negotiate with these employees? In other words, what minimal percentage should a city employee pay for health care?
Well, in terms of the pension costs, those are set by the state. The the comptroller.
No, but I said health care though.
Right, and health. But you also, health care. I think negotiations have to push for as much as they could possibly.
Well, do you agree that 0 to 15% is way low?
Zero is way low, and 15% is low. Yeah.
Well, what do you think the average private sector person pays in the area?
I would. It's got to be probably 20, maybe. 20,
I think you're a little low. I'm a small businessman,
25%.
Well, you can't go by me because I'm self-employed, but I know what other people in the private sector pay, and it's even more than 25. But Dan?
Well, the problem we're having today, obviously, is government's broke, so we have to do something. I mean, is it healthcare or is it pay? One or the other. So we just need to negotiate a little better, in my opinion. Again, it may go to arbitration. We're going to lose anyway with the state, but anyway, you really need to. I mean, can they pay 50% of the health costs? I mean, hey, you're going to have to throw it out there at some point. You're going to have to. I mean, unfortunately, you're going to have to.
No, but would you advise the mayor? Because I think the mayor is going to, and I talked to the mayor. He says that, well, obviously, he says, when I got it out of him, he says, yeah, these are too low. But he doesn't want to give a commitment of a very high amount because he says he has to work with these unions. And, a mayor doesn't want to have problems of the unions attacking him. So a lot of this is political expediency as well. So I think it's incumbent upon you as common council people to really say, well, this is not commensurate with what transpires in the private sector, and at least let's bring it up to that. Feelings?
The unions the unions in today's day and age have got to work with the city. They really do. I mean, again, many of these guys many of these guys that work for the city. My question to them is, do you live in the city? That's important to me. Do you collect a paycheck to the city? Are you making decisions for city taxpayers and live outside the city? Mm-hmm. To me, that's wrong. You should at least, if you collect a city paycheck, you should live in the city. That's where you get your community pride. That's where you want to better your neighborhood. I mean, we're paying you.
I don't see how people argue against that. It seems like a non-starter to me.
Well, let me tell you.
Jason is just shaking his head too.
You talk to somebody, let me tell you, you talk to some of these guys that work for the city, they're like, you leave me alone, I'm going to move where I want to move. Well, that's
Right.
great. Then how about a user fee then? How about give me, how about there's another fee right there. Give
Yeah,
me,
I don't want to get into New York City's commuter fee
Right,
and all
right,
that.
right,
Yeah,
right.
right. Well, that's it. Gentlemen, I very much appreciate the time. Now, as promised, we are going to have a 2-minute summation. So, as I say, Mr. Trevisani won the coin toss, so Mr. Flemma, you're up first. Final thoughts?
Well, I want to say thank you to you, Richard, and Utica College for hosting us. I appreciate it, and it was I thought, a lively and thoughtful debate. We always hear about the brain drain, and as a young professional, my wife and I, we're here. We have the ups and downs of living here, and I will bring that perspective to the council. We need new ideas. We need fresh ideas. We can't stay with the status quo. It's impossible with the tax burden that we have and the tax cap and all the services that we provide. We have to think out of the box. We have to be proactive, and we have to be professional, and that's what I hope to bring to the council. And I would ask all of your listeners to go out and vote November 5th, and I thank you.
Dan Trevisani.
Well, what it boils down to is we really need to make the tough decisions. The decisions that turn I said this again, the decisions that turn your friends into enemies. You really have to make some tough decisions. And I think with my experience in public safety, of not being able to be bluffed by anybody, understanding what really goes on there with the police departments and the fire departments and how we spend our monies and how we organize those departments. I think that those are areas that we really need some expertise, and I have that expertise to bring to the table and to make those tough decisions that we need to stop the blight that's now moving into South Utica. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, that you heard this debate, our Not Your Father's, we call it Not Your Father's debate night, because I think if you listen to both the first hour and this hour, it's a little different than how debates are normally transpire, and so we hope a little more lively and hope maybe a little more informative as well. We did ask the tough questions, but we are civil as well. Jason Flemma, the Republican candidate, and Dan Trevisani, the Democratic candidate for the 3rd Ward of Utica's Common Council, thank you very much. And me, I'm Richard Morris. I'm host of Green Local 175 Live, and we do the program every Tuesday night live from 7 to 9 p.m., and we also replay it on Sunday from 9 to 11 a.m. And by the way, if you go to greenlocal175.com, expect sometime on Wednesday, we will have both debates, so you can go to that. You go to the media button and then the radio and internet show button, and you'll see a link that will bring you to the debates. We'll have them in an MP3 audio format. So once again, I'm Richard Morris, and I'm going home.
All right.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate it very much.